Tell me about state police power.
Senator, my understanding of state police power is the authority of the state officials to enforce state law.
Well, what if the state law is in violation of federal law?
Well, we have the Supremacy Clause under Article 6 of the Constitution that provides that federal law is the supreme law of the land.
Yeah, but that's not an exercise of state power. What's the origin of states' police power?
My understanding, Senator, is also from Article 1 of the Constitution, where the Congress was enumerated certain powers, and under one of the provisions of Article 1, anything that was not specifically enumerated.
You don't think it's Article 10?
Well, Article 10 has to also is also applicable.
Actually, the 10th Amendment. What does the 10th Amendment say?
The 10th Amendment provides that any specific power that was not given to a Congress or denied to the states applies to the states and the people.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Hot News Today. Today, I'm diving into a recent, intense moment from a Judiciary Committee hearing where Senator John Kennedy grilled Judge Martinez and Counselor Sooknanan. It was a fiery exchange that raised critical questions about state power, federal law, and ethical obligations in the legal profession. Stick around as I break down everything you need to know about this eye-opening moment. Before we jump in, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell for more in-depth political breakdowns like this one. So let's start with the exchange between Senator Kennedy and Judge Martinez. It all began when Kennedy asked Martinez about the concept of state police power. Martinez responded saying state police power refers to the authority of state officials to enforce state law. He pressed further, asking what happens when state law conflicts with federal law. Martinez acknowledged the Supremacy Clause in the Constitution, which says federal law takes precedence. Kennedy pointed out it's actually the 10th Amendment that provides the foundation for state powers not specifically granted to the federal government. Martinez had to backpedal and agree with Kennedy's interpretation of the 10th Amendment.
And that's the origin of a state's police power, right?
Yes, Senator.
Okay, it's not Article 1.
I read it as both, Senator, but if it's Amendment 10, then it's Amendment 10, Senator.
Does the federal government have police power?
The federal government has authority to enforce its federal law.
Yes, ma'am. But we've talked about the state's police power. Does the federal government have police power?
Well, the executive branch has the power to enforce the law executed by the legislature.
Well, but the federal government can't. The Constitution's pretty clear that you have to have an enumerated power in the Constitution, right, in order to be able to do something?
Well, it's my understanding, Senator, there are enumerated powers, but there are also implied powers in the Constitution.
Yeah, but those are implied to be enumerated. There is no federal police power, is there?
Well, Senator, my understanding is that the executive branch has the power to execute the laws of the United States.
I know, but that has nothing to do with police power. Let me move on.
The conversation took an interesting turn when Kennedy brought up the topic of federal police power. Kennedy pointed out that the federal government only has enumerated powers, and there's no mention of a federal police power. Moving on to Counselor Sooknanan, Kennedy shifted the conversation towards her past legal career at Jones Day. Sooknanan was involved in a post-election legal challenge related to Pennsylvania's election rules. Kennedy brought up an article in which Sooknanan allegedly made a controversial statement about the case. Sooknanan denied it, stating she never spoke to the media and had no idea how those words made it to the reporter.
Senator, it was a firm client. I was a partner at the firm.
And you were going to share in the money, right?
Correct, Senator.
Okay. And in a call where you and some of your partners were talking about the case, this is what you said about your client who's paying you. You said, this is according to an August 25, 2022 article, you said, quote, "This lawsuit was brought for no other reason than to deprive poor people of the right to vote," close quote. You said that, didn't you?
Senator, those were not my words. I do not know who provided that quote to the reporter.
You gave it to the reporter, didn't you?
Senator, I never spoke to the reporter or anyone in the media about the meeting in question, and I'll tell you why. As a partner at Jones Day, all partners are bound by a confidentiality obligation to the firm. And that meeting was an internal, confidential partners meeting.
Yeah,
I never spoke to the media about it, and those were not my words, Senator.
Kennedy challenged her qualifications to be a federal judge. given the controversy surrounding her involvement in the case. Do you think Sooknanan's past behavior should disqualify her from a judicial position? Let me know your take.
And put them under oath, they would say, "No, she never said that."
Senator, I can't tell you what someone else would say under oath. I can tell you under oath that those were not my words. I never spoke to the media about that call.
And you think on light of this, you're qualified to be a federal judge?
Senator, I never spoke to the
Say
media.
that about a client?
Senator, as I said, those were not my words, and I never spoke to the media about the meeting in question. I take my obligations, ethical and otherwise, incredibly
Counsel,
seriously.
you said that, didn't you?
Senator, I did not say those words.
From questions about state power to concerns about ethical behavior in the legal profession, this hearing covered some pretty important constitutional issues. If you enjoyed this analysis and want to hear more breakdowns of political hearings and legal discussions, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell to stay updated on future videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.